say. Ireland looked incredibly impressive against England, and Andy Farrell's, despite reservations about the age profile of the squad, he's proved himself to be a very, very good motivator. I would expect them to win by several scores. I think a victory for Wales, really, and it's kind of sad to say this, but a victory would be to concede fewer than 40 points.
Wow. Okay. Wales have lost 14 games in a row. Tottenham have lost 5 in a row. They are winless in 11 in the Premier League. They are without a win in 11. Both sides are desperate for a result this weekend, and there will be in-depth coverage for you in the Times and the Sunday Times. David Bates joins us. He is sports news editor. Hello.
Hello.
Very good to see you. Should we start with cricket, though? Because England have lost the T20 semi-final to India. It was fairly close.
That's right. They lost by 7 runs. In many ways, it's a difficult match to interpret, because there was one very glaring error in which Harry Brook, the England captain, dropped India's leading run scorer when he had not very many runs, and he went on to make 89. It was probably the decisive score from an Indian batsman. But then in the chase, England acquitted themselves very, very well. Jacob Bethell, the young batsman, scored a brilliant century. It was England's 3rd fastest in T20 internationals. So there were lots of positives, but it comes in the context of a very disappointing Ashes campaign, Brooks' altercation with a bouncer in New Zealand before the Australia tour. So despite the fact that they kind of ended on a positive performance, I think, for Brendan McCullum, the coach, and for Harry Brook, the captain, there's still questions to answer, really.
So does it feel like an era could be ending in English cricket?
I think in terms of Harry Brook's future, there aren't really many alternatives to him as captain. He is probably still, on balance, England's best white ball batsman. I'd say it's unlikely that he's going to be replaced as captain, though. Obviously stand to be corrected on that. Brendan McCullum's future, I think, is a bit more unclear. He was brought in at a time when the confidence among English cricketers was very low, and he did a good job in the short terms in terms of boosting that. Yeah. But flaws have emerged. The lack of technical coaching, the atmosphere over which he provided, in which players felt like they could go out. Simon Wilde gets into that a little bit today in his sort of analysis of the semi-final, and Mike Atherton will be weighing in on that today.
Good stuff. We look forward to that. We're also looking forward to the Six Nations coming back. The week off, yes, I get it, but it's a real pain for those of us who enjoy the Six Nations. So Ireland v Wales tonight, and then we've got Scotland v France and Italy versus England tomorrow. So should we start with Wales? They've lost 14 straight games in the Six Nations. So have they got any hope against Ireland, really?
You wouldn't give them a massive chance. No. I mean, I think it's potentially a little bit unfair to compare them to Spurs, because Wales have at least shown some signs of improvement. They were pretty decent against Scotland last time out, albeit they lost because of a real lapse in concentration from a kick-off. Do they have a chance? A very, very slender one, I would say. Ireland looked incredibly impressive against England, and Andy Farrell's, despite reservations about the age profile of the squad, he's proved himself to be a very, very good motivator. I would expect them to win by several scores. I think a victory for Wales, really, and it's kind of sad to say this, but a victory would be to concede fewer than 40 points.
Wow. Okay. And really, what we need to discuss as well, David, is just how much Scotland are going to beat France by. I'm not biased at all.
A point or two.
My husband's French, okay? It doesn't go down well in our household.
I hope he's preparing for emphatic defeat.
A point or two. Scotland have done very, very well against France in the past few years. It's not Scotland's real bogey team in the past 5, 6, 7 years have been Ireland. They've had some good success against France, much in the same way as they have against England. They can play with intensity, play with width. We have a sort of great analysis piece from Charlie Morgan, which has been up online for a couple of days and will be in the Scrum in print tomorrow, on quite how Scotland can beat France. But it's definitely possible. France have got a massive pack, but Scotland have the capacity to be able to tire them out, and they've got an incredibly dangerous backline.
And there are questions, I suppose, about England's confidence, because they are playing Italy, after back-to-back losses against Ireland and Scotland.
Yeah, the defeat against Ireland for England was really a very curious one, because although they'd lost to Scotland over the previous 12 matches, they hadn't lost, and they had shown themselves to be quite a capable team, and the discrepancy between how they played against Ireland and their potential was as great as I've ever really seen in an international rugby team. So something was clearly amiss. Italy, on the other hand, looked full of confidence. They're much better than they have been in years. Italy have never beaten England, so in a sense, the weight of that history makes it difficult to envisage them beating them this time. But if there were two different teams on form, I think you would probably expect Italy to win.
Yeah, fair enough. Right, and we must mention Spurs. We kind of mentioned them in passing. So they lost 3-1 to Crystal Palace. How much trouble are Spurs in at this point?
Well, they're 1 point above the relegation zone. They have a Champions League round of 16 match against a two-legged Champions League round of 16 match against Atletico to negotiate, which is going to tax them certainly. And the next match is against Liverpool, and then they face Nottingham Forest, who are also in the relegation battle. So, and they have
box office, this relegation battle.
They have a manager they've brought in, who's a sort of short-term firefighter, who's there to get a bounce out of them, and he hasn't got a bounce out of them. So really, I would say they're in an awful lot of trouble. Not irredeemably so, but yeah, they're in big trouble.
Yeah, fair enough. Thank you very much, David. Good to see you. Thank you for stopping by. That is David Bates, who is sports news editor at the Times and the Sunday Times.